You watch the taillights of your coworker Dave's brand new $70,000 truck fade into the rainy dusk, and a cold, familiar knot tightens in your chest. Your own key stubbornly sticks in the ignition of a 10-year-old sedan that smells like stale coffee and forgotten dreams. On paper, you did everything right this month. Saved a bit, skipped the expensive dinners, kept your head down. Yet, as you look at your modest bank balance, you feel completely invisible, wondering if your quiet discipline is actually just a slow march to nowhere. But what you can't see is that Dave's shiny new truck is hiding a crushing financial reality. A trap he cannot easily escape. Marcus sat at his laminate kitchen counter, the hum of his refrigerator the only sound in the quiet apartment. On his screen was a simple spreadsheet. It wasn't fancy, just a row of green numbers showing his emergency fund slowly climbing to $5,000. By modern standards, this was nothing. On social media, people his age were posting about crypto gains, luxury trips to Tulum, and house keys in front of massive suburban builds. Marcus, meanwhile, had spent his Friday night comparing the price per ounce of generic black beans. He felt a dull, heavy ache of self-doubt. Every saving choice felt like a self-inflicted punishment, a voluntary exclusion from the good life. He closed the laptop with a soft sigh. To the outside world, Marcus was lagging behind, a runner who had lost his stride before the race even began. But as he turned off the kitchen light, leaving his modest home in darkness, he couldn't shake the feeling that his financial safety net might actually be a golden cage keeping him from truly living. The pressure didn't stay quiet, it began to scream. First came the invitation to his 10-year high school reunion, landing in his inbox like a tiny digital bomb. The group chat was already buzzing with pictures of rental villas in Cabo and debates over which high-end rental cars to book. To participate meant spending $2,000 he had painstakingly saved over 6 months. If he went, his emergency fund would be slashed in half. If he didn't, he would solidify his status as the outcast who couldn't keep up. Then, the pressure entered his professional world. During a Monday morning strategy meeting, his department head praised Dave for his aggressive, risk-taking attitude. Dave smiled, adjusting a polished, heavy Swiss watch that caught the fluorescent office lights. Marcus realized that in his corporate environment, visible wealth was equated with competence. By choosing to live quietly, Marcus felt he was actively hurting his career prospects. The stress began to bleed into his health. He found himself waking up at 3 in the morning, his heart racing, calculating the cost of a potential car repair. His old sedan had started making a faint, rhythmic clicking sound in the front axle. Every mile driven was a roll of the dice. One afternoon, Dave walked by, tossing a set of keys onto his polished desk with a loud, satisfying clack. "You still driving that old relic, Marcus?" Dave asked, his tone a mix of pity and playfulness. "Life is too short to drive a toaster. I got a guy who can lease you a brand new model for 0 down. You deserve to live a little." The words hung in the air. Marcus felt a burning desire to just give in, to walk into the dealership that evening, sign his name, and finally feel the intoxicating rush of belonging. He was on the absolute verge of throwing away 3 years of quiet sacrifice for a single moment of validation. But the break came on a Tuesday. The clicking in Marcus's car axle finally gave out right in the middle of morning rush hour. The car shuddered and coasted to a halt on the shoulder of the highway. Normally, this would have been an absolute catastrophe. 5 years ago, a towed car meant a frantic call to his parents, high-interest debt, and weeks of eating instant noodles in the dark. He felt the familiar cold panic rise in his throat. But as he sat on the guardrail waiting for the tow truck, he pulled out his phone and opened his banking app. He looked at his $5,000 emergency fund, and then something extraordinary happened. The panic simply stopped. The towing fee and the mechanic's estimate totaled exactly $1,050. Marcus tapped his screen, transferring the money to his checking account in 3 seconds. There was no argument, no pleading for a loan. In that quiet moment on the side of the highway, Marcus discovered the first invisible sign you're winning with money. your relationship with emergencies changes. Money no longer triggered an immediate fight-or-flight response. The chaos of life had been downgraded from an emotional tragedy to a mere administrative inconvenience. He looked at his phone again, realizing a deeper truth. Which brings us to the second sign of building real wealth. You stop using future time to pay for present choices. Just the day before, Marcus had overheard Dave in the break room rubbing his temples and complaining about a sudden spike in his insurance premium. Dave had quietly admitted he couldn't afford to take a single sick day this month, forced to sell his future mornings, evenings, and weekends just to pay for a depreciating metal box. Marcus, by driving a paid-off toaster, was completely free. He owned his future. To understand this, look at how money actually operates. A luxury car is money actively burning up. It looks fast, but it's disappearing. A solid cash cushion sits perfectly still, but it holds incredible power to do whatever you want. Building up that quiet power leads right to the third sign you're winning. You prioritize options over display. Having options is the ultimate luxury. It is the quiet power to walk away from a toxic boss, or to take a lower-paying job that actually brings you joy. You cannot buy that kind of freedom at a car dealership. Marcus realized every dollar he saved was a tiny deposit of autonomy, buying him a future hour or a day that belonged entirely to him. As Marcus rode in the passenger seat of the tow truck, he felt a strange, new sensation: complete indifference. He didn't care what the tow truck driver thought of his car. This points directly to the fourth sign: the burning need to justify your decisions vanishes. When you are insecure, you use purchases to tell a story about who you are. But when you possess actual financial security, the need to tell stories disappears. The quiet satisfaction of the truth is more than enough. Finally, Marcus looked at his modest investment account on his phone. It was small, but last month, it had earned $42 in dividends. It wasn't enough to buy a fancy dinner, but it was money he didn't have to work for, revealing the fifth sign: your money starts making its own quiet decisions. Those $42 would buy more shares, starting a silent, unstoppable chain reaction. While Dave was working harder to pay off a depreciating asset, Marcus's money was working quietly in the dark, building an empire brick by invisible brick. He leaned his head against the dusty window of the tow truck, watching the expensive SUVs fly past him on the freeway. For the first time in his life, he didn't feel envy. He saw the invisible chains wrapping around their polished steering wheels. They were trapped on a treadmill, while he had quietly stepped off. 3 months later, Marcus stood in his kitchen, packing a simple turkey sandwich into a reusable container. His car was running smoothly, his emergency fund was fully restored, and his investments continued their quiet growth. He didn't go to the Cabo reunion, and he didn't buy a new car. Instead, he spent that weekend hiking in a state park, breathing in the fresh air, feeling a deep, unshakable sense of peace that no luxury lease could ever buy. The world will always try to convince you that wealth is about what you show. But the ultimate victory is knowing that true wealth is the money you don't spend, the choices you don't have to justify, and the freedom to live life entirely on your own terms. Even if nobody else notices, your future self is quietly applauding. Comment "quiet win" down below if you're building something nobody can see yet. This video is for educational purposes only and is not financial advice. Outcomes vary based on your situation.